Hello everyone and welcome back to another secondary objective video. I am fresh off the back of Kent Super Major. I went 5-1 with my crew. I came third, narrowly missed out on first place, and it had me thinking, can the tactics that I use with my crew apply to other armies? And the answer is absolutely yes. There's two main strategies that I've relied on to help me get to the position I am, and I figure I'm going to release the secret sauce and give some of you an idea as to how those tactics can relate to your armies. First thing, I'm a pretty new channel. If you're interested in competitive 40k content for the average gamer, please subscribe, please like, follow me on YouTube, on Instagram, and I'll keep releasing content. This video has come about from requests from a number of people in the Kroot community that know about me already. And so I'm going to lift the lid and give you some of these secrets. So getting stuck in, these two Kroot tactics can work for any 40k army. Now, I've named them in a very innovative way. Their names are, number one, Ogres have layers. It's a survival tactic that I've built against faster melee armies, and it's a way to ensure that your key units are not going to get over-threatened and destroyed before you can actually use them. Tactic number two is called Operation Guerrilla Flank. This is a refused flank tactic, and the idea behind this is to ensure that you're focusing your key assets on a small part of your opponent's army. As for how they work, let's get stuck in. So the first one, this actually came about with my crew, because as a horde army that's relatively slow, that relies on careful precision, I was coming up against armies like Blood Angels that fly, they go over the top of me, they out-threat me by a huge distance, and they were hitting my key pieces before I could do anything. So I kind of racked my brain and was thinking, right, what can I do? And I started to think about how I could protect my units and kind of bubble wrap them. That was the analogy that came up. And I realized I could bubble wrap them with my own models, which makes sense. And it led me to thinking about Shrek, where Donkey says ogres have layers, or Shrek says ogres have layers. I don't remember. And the whole point behind this was saying, well, there's no way I can out-threat these models. So rather than try and attack them before they attack me, I just won't. I'm going to let them attack me, but I'm not going to let them fight the things that they want to fight. The problem, as I said, is these fast melee armies, they're faster than me, they hit harder than me, and the instinct to try and sit back and wait for them to come out, it just doesn't work, because either you'll lose on points or they're going to attack you first. So as for how this strategy actually looks, I have a super exciting diagram that I've created here that talks about how you wrap your hammer up and how you actually push up the board regardless. So in the center, you have your hammer unit. I'm going to come on to that as for how that fits for other armies. But for the Kroot, my hammer unit are Kroot Rampages. They move 7 inches, they're really slow, but they hit like a truck. So these guys form the center. Around it, in concentric circles, are going to be multiple units of expendable infantry, which in my case are Kroot Carnivores or even Kroot Hounds. And I'll normally stack these 2 to 3 units deep, so that even if my opponent commits 3 units, they're going to really struggle to get through to the actual guerrillas in the center. The whole point is you form this kind of circle and think of it a little bit like maybe like a scrum in rugby or in American football, if there's some kind of equivalent. I don't know if the players all gather together because I'm English, I don't watch American football. But you gather together and you push the whole formation up the board to the point that if your opponent doesn't deal with you, you're going to hit them first. So what you're actually doing is you're forcing your opponent to come and fight you before they're ready. Because you're saying, if you don't attack me now, I'm going to get you next turn. And the whole point is that you're going to lose all these exterior units. They're going to get charged, they're going to get killed, but hopefully your hammer in the middle is going to be absolutely fine. What that means is next turn, you're then going to go into a unit that is not ready to fight you, and you should find that you end up winning that engagement. Now, that works really well for Kroot, but what if you're not Kroot and you don't have Kroot Rampages and Kroot Carnivores? Well, I have some great ideas for you. So every single army can do this tactic, and actually would probably find this tactic works really well. Astra Militarum have a ton of really big units, things like Ogres, things like Rogel Dawns that you probably want to protect. Well, what if you surrounded your Rogel Dawn with 2 to 3 infantry squads or 20-man Krieg units? That's going to be a really hard nut to try and a really hard shell to try and chew through to get to the actual nut inside, which is the Rogel Dawn. Tyranids can do a similar thing. I've used Norns or Warriors as the example, but there are tons of other units that work. It could even be Exocrines or Maliceptors, anything that does damage. surrounded by 2 expendable units. Orc boys also do this. You can have a war boss leading a big unit. It could be Gaz himself, Mega Knobs. You surround these guys with expendable boys or Gretchen, and it stops someone like Blood Angels getting in and killing the boys before they actually get to do work. And then Space Marines, it's maybe a little bit less relevant, but they have to be in every video because everyone plays Space Marines. So it could be you've got Terminators or a Gravis Brick. Terminators, especially right now, very popular, pushing up the field. And you might want to try and surround them with something like Infiltrators, Scouts, Incursors, whatever it might be. Something to just try and slow people down before they can actually get into the Terminators themselves. I'd be interested to hear if this works for other people. It's quite niche, and it really works when you're against fast melee threats. But of that, there's quite a lot in the game right now. Everything from Inner Circle Knights to anything Blood Angels wise. Orcs are super fast. There's lots of examples where this might work. So I'd love to hear if you try it and let me know what you think. Tactic number 2, which is my favorite name, is Operation Guerrilla Flank, TM. Now, the whole point around the reason that this tactic came to light is what I was finding was, again, my army's quite slow, my Kroot, and they don't have an awful lot of ranged firepower. And what I was finding is by spreading out too thin across the board, I wasn't having enough resources to really do the right job at the right time. And one day, kind of as a bit of a joke, I said, well, what would happen if I just put all of my guerrillas on one flank entirely and the other flank had infantry? And so Operation Guerrilla Flank was born. Now, the idea behind this and the reason that this actually works is you're basically giving your opponent an awful choice. So imagine on my opponent's expansion, I have just full sent at him every single one of my guerrilla units. It works out something like 100 wounds of guerrillas that are sat on his expansion on one side of the board. So that probably means that half his army can't fight right now because they don't have line of sight, they don't have the range, whatever it might be. On the other flank, I've put a ton of infantry with loads of OC, and yes, they're going to kill them, but it's going to take them a long time, and I'm probably still going to hold the objective. So what my opponent has to say is go, right, am I going to go and deal with these guerrillas? Because if I don't, they're then going to sweep across the board and kill me. But that means I'm then letting my opponent score loads of points. Or do I go after his infantry, in which case the guerrillas then are then going to wipe up a flank of the board and come and kill me? Or do I try and do both at the same time? And inevitably, that's kind of quite a hard task to chew through. And what I found is this has really helped me out. As I kind of explained, every single one of those answers is the wrong ones, because if they actually match the Krootox and try and kill them, I'm going to score points all game. And it's probably going to take them till turn 3 or turn 4 to kill all of those guerrillas, by which point I've scored multiple primary. I've probably even maxed it. And at that point, I just have to tie my opponent off and cause them problems. On the flip side, it's happened before where my opponent has said, right, I can't commit to these guerrillas. I'm going to try and take you off objectives. But because I've got so many units, by the time they do that, the guerrillas then have got time to sweep over into the middle and kind of roll across the battlefield and do some murdering, which is very appreciated. Now, again, it sounds really cool. I'm talking about Kroot, and you're probably sitting there thinking, well, how does that apply to the rest of my army? Well, I've got you covered, team. So as for how any army can do the same thing, it can work really, really well. So imagine that Custodes are playing, right? And a board is typically slightly asymmetric, where your expansion is closer to your deployment and your opponent's expansion is closer to theirs. Now, Custodes could send to your opponent's expansion a unit of bikes, Praetors, I think they're called, a unit of Venatari, and really just power some really fast, really heavily armored units down there and try and murder the whole flank. While on their expansion, they might be sitting back a little bit, hiding behind walls and holding objectives with high OC Custodes, while simultaneously shooting or kind of charging the middle. And again, your opponent has a really tough choice. They're saying, do I actually commit most of my army to go and just clear one expansion? Or do I actually instead try and do everything all at once, which again has a ton of risk to it? And that same method applies to a lot of things. And I typically do this actually with my World Eaters too. So with World Eaters, I might send all down one flank Angron, a unit of Berserkers, some 8-bound, while on the other side, I'm using things like Spawn and Jackals to hold objectives. And actually, they're not really worth killing, but they are scoring me points for the game. Whereas my opponent's looking at Angron, looking at Berserkers and thinking, oh my god, I'm about to get rushed if I don't deal with this threat. Eldari, they can do the strategy really well, but in a kind of a different way. They're so fast and they're so mobile that they can actually focus on a flank and probably redeploy and get back to the other flank before your opponent can even deal with it. Grey Knights on the flip side can also do this, but instead they do it by uppy downying. They can remove most of their army, put it all on one flank, wipe a load of models, and because they're so far away, probably can't be interacted with at the same time. Now, this has been quite a short video. I just want to highlight some more key points there as to how these two tactics work. If people are interested in finding out more, please send me a message. If you want to understand a bit more about how other things that my crew might do work into other factions, please let me know. I'm always interested to hear what ideas are useful. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Don't forget your secondary objective, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next video. Take care.